Hello everyone. Now that season 2 of House of the Dragon has been over for a bit, I wanted to talk about 4 characters from the show who want to sit on the Iron Throne, and why 2 should never be king, while the other 2 would have made good rulers despite their flaws. And they are Aemond, Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Aegon. Spoiler warning. The show does an excellent job in season 2 in showing the weaknesses of each character as well as their strengths. Let us first begin with Aemond. He is one I believe should never be king, and here's why. Remember how Daemon was in the first season? Well, add the childhood trauma Aemond suffered, being constantly humiliated by his brother and having needed to prove himself since he lost his eye. Given no means to pursue, no outlet, nothing to prove to anyone that he is a capable knight, Aemond has been left to fester in his hatred, and when he is given power it goes to his head. When Aegon invites him to the small council, Aemond immediately tries to take command of military matters. He may be well taught in battle strategy and see the advantage of taking Harrenhal, but instead of working together with his brother Aegon, or insisting on being privy to his grandfather's schemes, Aemond wants to act, and so he plans with Cole behind Aegon's back, and the council's back, to lay a trap to draw out one of Rhaenyra's dragons. A plan that is almost ruined by Aegon flying to Rook's Rest himself. But here, Aemond seizes another opportunity, a chance to not only get revenge on his brother for all the humiliation Aegon had done to him, but a chance to also claim the throne. With Aegon bedridden, Aemond is named Prince Regent, and while a smart thing he does is have the rat catchers cut down, he makes his first mistake by having the gates of King Landing shut, so that the small folk cannot leave. In true royal arrogance, Aemond overlooks the importance and power of the small folk, and sees their fleeing as a sign of weakness on the crown. But with the city cut off from regular food supplies, and the people getting sick and dying of starvation, a smarter move would have been to give his blessing for the small folk to leave, to tell them they did the crown a great service by leaving, as therefore the city would have less mouths to feed, less chance of sickness spreading, and less innocent casualties to worry about should Rhaenyra attack King's Landing. He ignores advice about the dangers of allying with the likes of the Triarchy, and how it is not worth it to ally with someone whom you cannot trust. While he correctly sees through Larys Strong, he also relies on him, and appoints his grandfather as Hand of the King again to oversee the ruling of the city so he can go off to war. Upon seeing that Rhaenyra has new dragon riders, he burns a defenseless city to the ground, and tries to force his sister Helaena to fight, knowing better than anyone that she does not have the temperament for it, and would actually be more a hindrance in the field than an ally. Still, he would rather have her dragon Dreamfire at his side than his younger brother's untested dragon Tessarion. When he tries a second time to get Helaena to join him, this time trying to sweet-talk her into agreeing, he is shocked when Helaena reveals she knows he deliberately burned Aegon, and threatens to kill her when she prophesies his death. Aemond is better suited as a general, a commander of armies that he can successfully lead in the field. He has no patience for the intricacies and day-to-day things that come with ruling. The small folk mean nothing to him, and he dismisses any and all advice of the council, no matter how prudent it would be to listen to it. He is the tyrant Alicent and her father feared Daemon would be if Rhaenyra was crowned and Daemon ruled through her. Now on to Daemon. Daemon has changed from the beginning of season 1 to now. The years being married to Rhaenyra have tempered him, but he still has many of his old habits. One such being he is unable to sit still and needs direction in order to have something to focus on. With Rhaenyra gone from Dragonstone, Daemon does not focus on leading the council or tending to the island's defenses. Instead, he chafes at being left behind and wants to ride to King's Landing to challenge Vhagar. When Rhaenyra returns and she wants Aemond, Daemon takes her words as an order and acts, hiring 2 men to do the deed he cannot sneak into the castle and do himself. That the plan goes wrong he could not have foreseen, but he shows no remorse for it, angering Rhaenyra, and the 2 of them fight over old grievances. Spoiling for a fight, Daemon leaves Dragonstone and heads to Harrenhal, only to be disappointed when he takes it without bloodshed. He pushes for confrontation, dismissing those who could be allies when the results are not as immediate as he would like. He does not understand the feud between the Brackens or the Blackwood, nor does he take the time to understand it, or the River Run for that matter. He is a Targaryen and he has a dragon. What more does he need to command people? Instead, he tells the Blackwoods to do their worst on the Brackens, to bring them to heel because the crown cannot be seen committing certain atrocities. He is surprised when instead of the River Lords being cowed by this and his dragon, they instead dig into their stubbornness even more and refuse to form their armies under his banner, without justice for the Brackens and the order from Lord Tully. The current Lord Tully is old and dying, and his heir is unwilling to kill the old man off, so Daemon dismisses him as useless. An action that comes back to bite him, as when the old lord dies, Lord Oscar does not forget how Daemon treated him, and even though he vows to uphold his family's oath to Rhaenyra, he puts Daemon in a precarious position to deliver justice to the Blackwood Lord, a man loyal to Daemon for the atrocities he committed on House Bracken, or lose the right to command the army of the River Run. Forced to behead a man who pleads for his life and swears his loyalty, Daemon is left wrong-footed and unsure of himself. Now, through all of this, Daemon suffers from many hallucinations of his past, each a reminder of a loved one gone or a wrong he has done, knowingly or not. The most touching and powerful of these scenes are those with Viserys, the last one where Viserys offers the crown that was such a burden to him, to Daemon, who had always coveted it, and Daemon looks at it with dread. After this scene, and after Lord Blackwood is executed, Daemon has a vision wherein he sees his death and the Song of Ice and Fire, and pledges his allegiance to Rhaenyra once more. Like Aemond, Daemon is better suited as a general. Though a good father, he has little patience for politics and is better suited for mounting defenses and fighting battles. Next is Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra has a hard time separating her personal feelings from queenly duties, a trait that is not encouraged in reigning monarchs, as a king or queen must be able to put aside their own wants and desires in order to rule. A monarch who is more focused on his or her own individual matters will neglect the kingdom, and the kingdom will feel this neglect. For instance, Rhaenyra disappears without a word to anyone to search for Luke's remains, leaving her council unaware of where she is and unsure of how to proceed in her absence. Knowing Daemon as she should by now, she gives him nothing to occupy his time while she is gone, sparing no thought to how he and her oldest son Jace must be going stir-crazy and worrying about her. Yes, the grief of a lost child is devastating, and not a pain I would wish on even my enemies. As Theoden says in The Two Towers,
no parent should have to bury their child.
But his grief at losing his son did not make Theoden unable to act, whereas Rhaenyra gives the impression that she believes everything and everyone will await patiently for her return while she searches for closure. When Rhaenyra comes back, she hears with one ear everyone's reports, but instead of remarking on any of the news she is told, Rhaenyra instead says,
I want Aemond Targaryen.
putting her revenge at the forethought, not the war, and not her council, who looks to her for leadership. Her argument with Daemon makes her pull back. Losing him on her council loses her the strong voice that would have commanded the other lords' respect, and she does nothing to fill this void. She is at war with her own council several times, wanting to ride to battle and counseled not to do it, told to act, but she does not want others to die in her name. She fears losing the peace her father had during his reign, not realizing that the peace is over. She didn't inherit it as she thinks. War was declared when Aegon was crowned instead of her, and the death of Lucerys was the first blood spilt. While she is the most cautious of the four, she is too cautious, and worried about what her council thinks of her, and complaining about how her father did not prepare her for this. She too has this arrogance of superiority, thinking that her position as heir should have had everyone kneel to her, and not thinking to prepare for the outcome of war should any disagree. She was named heir at 16? She had years to prepare herself, to take instruction in battle strategy and other matters to learn how to rule. Her being unprepared now is no one's fault but her own. Instead of slapping her council around and keeping secrets from them, she should have shown she was willing to listen to their advice, work with them, and above all, command their respect, without needing someone like Daemon or Rhaenys to bring them to heel. But being at odds with her council pushes Rhaenyra to listen to Mysaria, who flatters her and gives good advice at first. such as turning the small folk in King's Landing against the Greens by providing them with food. This act she does not tell her council, and so the lords have no idea that she is acting. And while it is a good move, it is also a slow one. When Meleys falls, taking out Sunfire, and Vhagar needs rest, again, Rhaenyra does not press her advantage. It should not have been difficult to find out how long it takes for Aemond to get from the Red Keep to the place where Vhagar is outside the city walls. This would have been an ideal time to take her dragon, Baela's and Jace's, order Daemon to meet her at King's Landing, and attack before Aemond had time to get to Vhagar. But Rhaenyra does not do this. Instead, she frets about needing more dragon riders for the dragons that are big enough to challenge Vhagar. Trying with Sir Stefan to claim Sea Smoke ends in failure, but Rhaenyra is willing to try again, especially when Sea Smoke claims the shipwright Adam, who proclaims his loyalty to Rhaenyra. And this is where Mysaria gives bad advice, saying to use the lowborn, the illegitimate Targaryen children who have been left unclaimed, and Rhaenyra at first is against it, because their character would be unknown, and thus she would not know if they have honor and are trustworthy. But in the end, she listens to Mysaria and has them sent for. This angers the dragon keepers, who see the unnamed Targaryens as a blasphemy, and they leave. Rhaenyra gives a speech to the assembled dragon seeds, but very little instruction on what they are supposed to do. She just has them all go down into the dragon pit together and hopes for the best. Ulf and Hugh claim the two biggest dragons on Rhaenyra's side, and the queen wisely does not challenge Vhagar with them when Aemond flies towards the island. For the two new dragon riders would be a threat to each other, as well as Rhaenyra, were they to try flying and attacking while knowing next to nothing about what they are doing. And yet, despite saying she doesn't know anything about them, what type of men they are, she doesn't try to get to know them or train them. She leaves their training to others. She sees how uncouth Ulf is at dinner, and does not see the danger in not being able to command her own table, let alone have the respect of this new dragon rider. She won't get it by simply ordering him about and dangling knighthood in front of him. This will have repercussions in the future. With these new dragons, Rhaenyra listens to Mysaria once again and orders them to be ready to burn down whole cities, not just the armies marching against her, whose movements are known to her. No, the cities that these armies came from, so they can break the spirit of the enemy. The real threat is Aemond on Vhagar and the armies who march for the Greens. But instead of using the dragons as she should, going after the armies while they are marching and thus weary from travel, she instead is going to burn down cities full of innocent people. Rhaenyra is once again short-sighted and does not see the repercussions that will follow from this act. There are two good scenes that show Rhaenyra's character very well. The first is her first meeting with Alicent. Desperate to end the war in her favor, while she is at a disadvantage, Rhaenyra mistakenly believes Alicent has the power to do this. But even though Alicent had a hand in putting Aegon on the throne and starting the war, she is powerless to stop it.
It's too late, Rhaenyra.
The fire has been lit, and there is no putting it out without bloodshed. The second scene is again her meeting with Alicent. How this second meeting comes about is a little messy, but it's necessary to show the change in Rhaenyra, who, with 7 battle-ready dragons and the host of the Riverlands army at her call, is sure of her victory. She throws Alicent's words from the set back to her.
It's too late.
And without remorse, pushes Alicent to make a difficult choice. She will accept Alicent and Helaena surrendering King's Landing to her, if Alicent also agrees to step aside so that Aegon can be executed. Rhaenyra does not have to do this. Aegon is a cripple, and as far as she knows, no longer a threat to her in his present condition. Quick Shammy editor note here. I've seen a lot of talk about this scene, and most people seem to wonder, when Rhaenyra claimed a son for a son, why didn't Alicent tell her that Rhaenyra already got that with the death of Jaehaerys? Well, that's because Rhaenyra already addressed that back during this scene. When Alicent accuses her of having the little prince killed, Rhaenyra denies having it done, and says Alicent has yet to answer for the death of Lucerys. This wanting to kill one of Alicent's sons for the death of her son is similar to when Lucerys accidentally took Aemond's eye when defending his brother, and Alicent was prepared to take the boy's eye herself in retribution. Also, both Alicent and Rhaenyra are blind to the fact that simply having Rhaenyra sitting on the throne will not end the war. Now, despite these flaws, Rhaenyra could be a good queen. She does show understanding and compassion towards the small folk. She has an understanding of politics, and being cautious is a desired trait in a ruler, than one who would be happy to go to war. Now, if she could take her patience when dealing with her children and stepchildren, and apply that to running the kingdom, handling her council, and get over her own self-importance, not trusting only one person's advice, she could have been a good queen. And now on to the last, Aegon. Aegon begins the season still riding on the high from his coronation. At first not wanting the crown, Aegon changed when he saw the small folk cheering for him, the first people happy at something he did. Not knowing that they were forced to attend, Aegon wants their love and approval, listening to their petitions and giving them encouragement to speak, wanting to help them, because no one on his council tells him what is going on. Aegon is unprepared for the petitions, like the farmer whose sheep were taken to feed the dragons, or the men in charge of building the scorpions they need to defend the city from dragon attack. Like Rhaenyra, Aegon is at war with his council. Though for the most part they smile and nod at what he says while ignoring it, they want a puppet king, and are not interested in actually helping Aegon be a good king, despite his efforts to be so. He is still immature, shown by not reprimanding his son for distracting Lord Tywin, instead wanting to humiliate Tywin, as he is one of the lords on his council who talks down to him. All of his efforts to be a good king are destroyed when his son is killed. Outraged, and justly so, Aegon declares war and wants everyone on Dragonstone to die. Now his thoughts are less on the small folk and more on revenge, making those who killed his son pay. And thus he undoes his grandfather's work in securing the small folk's sympathy by hanging all the rat catchers to catch the guilty one. Since his mother didn't warn him to beware of Larys Strong, Aegon listens to his counsel and fires Otto as his hand, an act that gives him pleasure, as Otto did slap him around in Season 1. Aegon, though, appoints Cole as his hand, for Cole sent Sir Eric to kill Rhaenyra, a plan Aegon thinks is brilliant. Like Rhaenyra, Aegon is short-sighted to the consequences that happen because of rash actions. Cole acted without the king's consent or the council's, something he does again by working with Aemond behind Aegon's back to attack Rook's Rest, not Harrenhal as Aegon thought. Desperate not to be seen as weak, Aegon foolishly appoints his friends to the king's guard, who do not take the White Cloak seriously and lead him astray by going to taverns and brothels to get drunk. And their inexperience as knights causes two of them to overreact and start a riot, and they are banished by Aemond to the wall. Angry at being disrespected by his council and his brother, Aegon looks to his mother for advice, but she tells him to do nothing. They don't want Aegon mucking up everything. They all seem as useless. Aegon rides Sunfire to Rook's Rest, eager to prove himself as a warrior. He bravely takes on Meleys, but Sunfire is no match for the Red Queen. Upon seeing Aemond coming, Aegon at first thinks he is saved, but his relief soon turns to horror when he realizes his brother intends to murder him. Against all odds, Aegon survives the Dragonfire and the fall, but he is left a cripple, a ruined husk of his former self, and seen more useless by everyone than he was before. Left mostly alone, Aegon has nothing but his own thoughts to stew in, and is vulnerable to Larys' continued manipulations. Larys rightly warns Aegon that Aemond will kill him, and Aegon allows Larys to smuggle him out of the city, unknowingly being saved from his mother's treachery. While Aegon was a drunkard and at home in brothels, he was willing to change when the crown was placed on his head. He wanted to be a better father, to teach his son as he had not been, to be a good king whom the small folk would love. But the small council wanted only a figurehead, and so, instead of being guided to being a good king, he was left to his own devices, while everyone forgot the power he had when they named him king. Much like Rhaenyra, Aegon could not separate his personal wants and desires and allowed them to interfere with his kingly duties, putting revenge in action to prove he wasn't weak over temperance and the right thing to do as king. Had the small council, including his mother and the Hand, worked with him and put the effort in to guide him rather than lead him, he may have made a good king. But that is all lost now, for there is nothing left in his heart but bitterness and the need for revenge. That's all I have for now. Please leave a comment on what you thought of these 4 characters, and if you know the story, try to avoid spoilers for those who don't. Take care, and may you all find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Farewell.